Alright, hey, what's up everyone? As promised, I'm back with my review of A Quiet Place, Day 1, which I got to see back in about mid-July. I'm a pretty big fan of the various Quiet Place movies that have come out so far. I say various, it's only two. The first one I thought was really good, was fantastic. It was from the mind of John Krasinski, who delivered a great performance, which I felt held the film together. Emily Blunt was perfectly great as the wife to John Krasinski's character, as is in real life, which created a very real dynamic in that film. The children are all really good, and their immediate not shying away from showing killing a kid made the entire movie have stakes right off the bat. The effects were good, the directing was good, and the world building was good, which was most important. The second one, yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It was nothing special to that one. It was all right. Plus, their kids aged like 5 years in supposedly overnight, which was a hard detail to overlook when I watched them as a double feature on Halloween a few years ago. So I like the Quiet Place movies. The first one way more than the second. So I was interested in seeing this prequel, A Quiet Place Day 1. I was interested to see what way they were going to go, if I'd be interested or even care, since it's not following the family that I'm used to following. And after seeing the movie, I thought it was really good. Now, I'll probably separately rank all of the Quiet Place movies, including this prequel and what's assumed to be the third installment, the part 3 to the original storyline, I guess, which is supposedly coming next year. If the industry insiders are to be believed, that should be coming soon, or it's at least in development for the conclusion to that story. So I'll be interested in seeing how the trilogy wraps up. So this leaves the Day 1 in a kind of interesting and weird spot. The film was received by critics moderately well, and at box office it did moderately well. It did fine. I don't think there was a lot of hype going into the movie or great word of mouth afterwards, so going to see the movie I didn't really know what to expect really at all. I'd caught the trailer, I'd not really broken it down that much. I'd seen it here or there, and it looked serviceable, it looked to be expected. I am a huge fan of post-apocalyptic movies. The genre of post-apocalyptic movies are some of my favorites. I love stuff like, Greenland, The Day, Interstellar, Extinction, anything that strips a society down to its barest bones and then builds that very society back up. I'm all there for it. I love anything like that because as a aspiring writer, the writing that I think is most interesting is when you strip away anything that had been the norm for humanity in society, strip it all away, and then build it back up into something new because of whatever the happening has triggered, that has caused the circumstances surrounding whichever post-apocalyptic disaster movie you're watching. And so there's a lot of post-apocalyptic movies that I enjoy. If there's one that you really like, please recommend it to me in the comments and I'll get to watching it at some point. Because I really do love post-apocalyptic movies. They're the best. So, going into A Quiet Place Day 1, I was hoping it was going to be a good post-apocalyptic movie. And did it deliver? I thought so. The actress who portrayed the main protagonist throughout the movie is really good. She is fantastic. Her range, I didn't think I was going to like her at first. The first sequences with her, she seemed a little bit stiff and wooden, but that was her in perhaps the old life before the events are triggered in the story. But she really comes into her zone in scenes where she's escaping from the aliens that are blind, but they can hear really well, which is the premise of the Quiet Place movies, is these aliens descend onto Earth, crash land onto Earth, and wipe out pretty much everybody in a short amount of time, and they kill really anything that makes sound. So with that in mind, during the sequences with aliens stalking her, she is incredible. Her facial expressions, her eyes, she looks genuinely terrified the entire time. So big props and credit to her performance there. Her emotions, too. There are sequences of grief, of joy, of anguish, of anger, raw anger. And she is very real. She seems very real, very human, very raw. which is a credit to her performance as well. Now, midway through the movie, we meet our other protagonist who splutters up from a river out of nowhere. There's like the camera pans to water, and then all of a sudden, big splash, and Joseph Quinn pops out, and it's like, what? I was like, is that Eddie from Stranger Things? Because he doesn't have the long curly brown hair that I'd previously seen him in with Stranger Things, and he's in a lot more things now. Set to be Human Torch and Fantastic Four. We'll see how that pans out. I'm optimistic because I really like Joseph Quinn's acting, and here was another notch on his belt. He was really good in this. I didn't know he was British, so that was a surprise. I did not know that he was actually English, because all of a sudden he started speaking in an English accent, and it was very confusing. It was almost like, is that actually Joseph Quinn or just someone who looks like Joseph Quinn? But it was indeed Joseph Quinn, and he was great. I thought he was fantastic in this. He was really, really fun and provided a great counterbalance for the other protagonist. The chemistry that the two of them share, Joseph Quinn and the lead actress whose name I can't remember for the life of me, but I'll have it plastered all over the screen in post-editing. But they bounce off each other incredibly well. He was a slightly more optimistic type of person. He was over in America to study law, and so when the disaster happens, he's set up in a good spot. Whereas with her, she's a terminal patient, and she knows that she has, as she says, she's counted down years to months, to days, or to weeks, to days, to hours left until it's all gone. And so she's in a very bleak state of mind, to say the least. But he has this whole life that he had in front of him, and now it's been taken away. So he has a bit more of an upbeat approach to life, because he is still of the mindset of there's something to live for. She is of the mindset that this is the end for me, and now everything around me as well. The side characters we don't really get to dwell on for too long. The guy from Guardians of the Galaxy who is in the scene with Star-Lord where he was like, who? That guy's in here, and he's a great actor. He pops up in so many movies that I've seen him in, and he's pretty good, but I feel like he was wasted. His potential as an actor. He has very few sequences, and it really irked me, but at the same time I understood why they did it. We only really focus on the two main characters and the female heroine's cat as well. This trio is really who we follow for most of the movie. There's a couple survivors at the beginning and then a couple at the end, but we really don't get to follow around the side characters. The side characters are adequate enough, like the character who is the terminal patient's caregiver at the beginning. He's a really kind fellow. He becomes alien bait, spoiler, but he is well acted and well portrayed and well written, very likable. He's gone, so they didn't really give us much time, but I did care about him, so it was kind of like, when he got eaten as a snack by an alien. Now, the other guy that I mentioned from Guardians of the Galaxy, he was good too. It was nice to see him pop up at the end as well, but again, I feel like an actor of that caliber, he could have had more to do, because in the scenes he was in, he was really good. His facial expressions were really great. But in terms of acting, I want to again touch on the chemistry of the two leads. There is specifically a scene during a thunderstorm where they count for the thunder and then just let out screams of anguish and agony, just getting that raw feeling out. The scene's incredibly well acted. It feels real. Their emotion feels real. So props to two talented actors for selling what could be a incredibly cringy and laughable scene if it had been portrayed poorly, which they didn't do at all. It felt really real and really credible. Their emotions felt raw and genuine, which is a credit to their talent. The cat is a mix between a real cat and CGI, I think. It is quite noticeable at times when that transition is made, so that took me out of it in terms of the cat for a little bit, but that's a bit more of a nitpick. My biggest gripe with A Quiet Place Day 1 is I was hoping that we would see way more carnage than we did. We saw the chaos and the fray, the confusion, as so many people were eaten left and right, but the perspective that those scenes were shot in, while choreography was good and the cinematography used was good, I didn't love the perspective that we were shown. We focused on it through one character's eyes as we saw the chaos. I wanted to see a more full picture of what was happening everywhere, because I pictured this movie as showing us the reaction to the aliens landing. And it wasn't really that. Going in, I was hoping for How does the government deal with this? How does the government contact other governments about this? Because this was a quick thing, but I mean, there's going to be some preparing. There's going to be getting important people like celebrities or presidents out into safety if they can. I wanted to see more of that side of things. We focused on a very human and raw story of two characters, which is great, but it wasn't the movie I was expecting at the same time. So the story that we got was amazing, and I loved it, but it didn't feel like day one, if that makes sense, because it was a very narrow focus and lens to view the first day of the story. This is what my one gripe from a storytelling perspective. We didn't see a lot of the aliens in their initial carnage all across the globe, killing who knows how many people, and who knows how many stories are there of people trying to fight back, trying to figure it out. And this leads to my other nitpick. I felt the characters figured out that you can't make noise so quickly, almost wordlessly. It was like they understood so the script could happen. And that's a flaw in writing when characters do things just for the script to work. And they figured out so fast that if you make noise, you die. So fast did so many people realize that. It kind of blew my mind. It's like in real life, people wouldn't figure it out that fast. Yes, we have survival instinct, but the majority of us are dumb and not prepared for that. You know what I mean? So it kind of took me out of things, how there wasn't like figuring it out together, like testing the limits. What can we do? What can't we do? More people getting eaten, trying to figure out we should stay quiet, right? So that is another nitpick I have. Aside from that, this movie was incredibly emotional, and that is its core point. Its core point is these two characters that, in addition to the praises that I've sung for them in their acting, they were incredibly well written. These were very well written characters. They balanced each other really well, and they went on a journey together, a character arc that you required both of the characters, therefore, for them to go on this kind of introspective journey and being okay with their past. This involves them going to visit the heroine's bar where she grew up to reminisce on times where her dad would play piano there. And Joseph Quinn's character is a great gentleman and is so sweet and kind to this woman in the final stages of her life. Her body is weak the entire way, but she needs pizza, and she needs to go to this bar and this place where she's had so many happy memories in the past before the whole world kind of turned and became bleak for her perspective. So in the process of this movie's journey, her character arc is kind of reclaiming her humanity that she had lost due to her diagnosis, and she finds it in this kind gentleman from Britain helping her along the way and showing her the light in life despite the bleakness of now the world's situation. She starts to forget about the bleakness of her own situation, and she finds acceptance and peace in the end. And he has something to live for, falls in love with the cat, and hopefully we'll see him again. I'd love to see him pop up in part 3. Do you guys think that we'll see Joseph Quinn's character again in A Quiet Place Part 3? Let me know in the comments. But it's really them that anchored the film, because the story is incredibly well written when viewed through their lens. Again, it's not the lens I was expecting to view the film through. Again, I feel this is a narrow view to view the events of day one, this massive alien attack worldwide, and we view it through such a small peephole, really. And I felt that we could have done something more all-encompassing of the world. But despite that, the view through which we view this film story unfold is really well done, just because of the emotional beats. There were bits where I was tearing up because it was really well done, really well portrayed, and really well written. So that was a testament. The music was really well done too. It kept you in the moment. The effects on the aliens were great, just like the past ones. I wasn't expecting any corny or weird-looking animation, just because the CGI has always been pretty good in the Quiet Place movies so far, with the exception of that cat, which was a little bit weird. But the aliens looked great, so the effects were pretty good. It was well shot. The scene of Joseph Quinn's character running across the bridge carrying the cat, jumping for the ship, is really well done as well, really well filmed. The action sequences, they convey the chaos pretty well. Again, I would have liked a larger view of what was going on and focus on more characters rather than one, but seeing the chaos from one perspective, it was done well from an objective point of view as well. So these were a lot of my thoughts just kind of spilled out into this video. We'll see how it's chopped up in editing. So excuse my rambling at points here, but this was my general thoughts and review for A Quiet Place Day 1. I really liked it. Better than Part 2, not better than the original Quiet Place, but it was definitely better than A Quiet Place Part 2. Day 1 was solid. Day 1 was solid overall. And I think that the two leads just carried this movie. Because if you'd cast anyone else, I don't know that the movie is what it ended up being. It could have been so mediocre, so bad, so bland if you didn't hit a home run on the casting for the two leads. The two leads absolutely were incredible and were the driving force of the entire movie. I cared about the plot, the story, the movie as a whole, just because of them. They carried the movie, in my opinion. So I really enjoyed A Quiet Place Part 1, Day 1. It's hard to get this title in my head because there's A Quiet Place Part 2, A Quiet Place Day 1. It's inconvenient, I suppose. But this prequel was pretty good. I walked out of theaters thinking that was a great movie that I saw. So that was my review for it. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I enjoyed what I got. Let me know in the comments what you thought of A Quiet Place Day 1.